U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service logo, sun, mountain, duck, fish. This is an audio description for Leavenworth National Fish Hatchery, part of a video exploring the mural inside the visitor center. The hatchery was built between 1938 and 1940. The main hatchery building today contains the nursery for young fish, offices for the staff, and a visitor center. The visitor center, reached by a short hallway from the front door, is a single, long, mostly oval room. A hand-painted mural covers the entire wall from floor to ceiling, with an inset display case at one end. The mural is a visual explanation of the journey of the spring Chinook salmon of Icicle Creek. Although the mural is inside a hatchery, no hatchery operations are shown in the painting. Only the natural cycle is portrayed. This audio description follows the mural from one end to the other and interprets the meaning of the painting as well. At the entrance of the visitor center, a large case partly blocks the right side of the opening. A bald eagle is inside, brown wings lifted straight up 3 feet high as if to take off. Its bright yellow claws are spread, 3 toes in front and 1 behind, with sharp curved nails, holding onto a bare branch. The white tail is spread out for balance. Its white feathered head is turned, large hooked yellow beak slightly open, its pale, intense eyes looking down to its left as though spotting a fish amongst the rocks that cover the base of the case. You must turn to your left to pass the case, and the mural begins on your left with a dramatic side view of a black and white killer whale, or orca, swimming left to right. The mural presents a view both above and below the water. The orca is a male, recognized by his tall, pointed dorsal or back fin. Bubbles stream from the blowhole on the top of his head, and his mouth is partly open to reveal the tail of a salmon he has just caught in his small, sharp teeth. A school of large silver salmon rush past right to left as they hurry away from this predator. Another killer whale leaps completely clear of the water's surface in the background, black and white patterned belly toward you, round front flippers splayed out. 2 gulls, white with black wingtips, soar overhead, perhaps seeking scraps left by the hunting whales. The surface of the water has small waves with foam at the tips, indicating a moderate breeze. Some thin, high clouds catch a little rosy light. The ocean water in this part of the mural is greenish, becoming darker in the depths. Almost hidden in the dark green of the ocean is the signature of the artist, Roger Witter, painted just below the first orca's tail. Where the short wall bends to join the longer wall that forms the length of the room, a commercial fishing boat is painted in the distance, outfitted with trolling gear, recognized by the 2 long poles on either side of a center pole. When set up for fishing, the 2 poles on the side are lowered, and the lines with hooks trail from their tips. This boat shows a little trailing smoke, indicating it is motoring out to sea. Beneath the boat, and closer to you, a bright silver salmon turns sharply to chase a school of tiny silver fish. The school of salmon is not safe from other predators. A California sea lion sweeps through, its long front flippers curved and spread like the wings of a bird, twisting gracefully after a salmon, which itself is already turning to evade capture. Another sea lion is in deeper water, farther away, shooting through the sea with all 4 flippers trailing, traveling on momentum in this moment. Light shines from its dark, muscular body. Closer to the surface, a harbor seal chases 3 salmon that have turned away from the school. The seal's body is plumper than the dynamically moving sea lion, and its front flippers are short, pressed to its belly, but it still moves fast, trailing bubbles. A second seal has just succeeded in capturing a fish, clamping it in its muzzle like a dog. Overhead, 2 of the gulls keep an eye on the surface, and a tern joins them, its black cap of feathers, slim orange-red bill, and sharply pointed wings distinctive. Another fishing boat is in the distance, this time a pleasure craft with a small cabin. At least 5 individuals are on board, and a row of fishing rods curves from the back deck where they're set up for trolling. Behind them, the coastal headlands reach out into the ocean. Closer to the viewer and in deeper water, a salmon struggles to dislodge a clinging eel-like fish. With its long, skinny body and its habit of sucking blood from other fish, lamprey are easy to recognize. It is clamped onto the side of the salmon to draw a meal, piercing the skin with sharp triangular teeth. Lamprey, like salmon, migrate from freshwater to saltwater and back again into the rivers to spawn. They use their sucker mouth to climb over barriers in the river, as their fins are minimal and don't offer much power. They have been present in the ocean, and largely unchanged, for more than 400 million years. As you move farther into the room, the salmon in the school become smaller, not because they are farther away, but because they represent the emergence of young smolt into the ocean and their rapid growth as they feed in the sea. We are going back in time, seeing the salmon emerge from the river to run the gauntlet of predators as they grow. When the fish are large, they are favored by orcas, sea lions, and seals, but smaller, younger fish are preferred by other predators, like the diving cormorant that now appears. This bird is built for the water. Its dark head and neck are long and skinny, with a touch of yellow on the face, and its legs are set far back on its body with wide-webbed feet. Its stiff tail serves as a rudder. In a burst of bubbles, it dives deeply, pursuing a salmon smolt just out of reach of its long, narrow bill. In the background, more headlands are seen closer to you, trees now becoming discernible. We are in the estuary, where salt and freshwater mix. Birds that seldom fly far from shore join the feeding frenzy. An osprey, smaller than an eagle, but with equally sharp claws, and wings that bend sharply at the wrist, has captured a flopping fish and turns for land. In the depths of what is now becoming a river, a massive sturgeon makes its way along the rocky bottom, surrounded by young salmon the length of your hands, flooding past to reach the sea. The sturgeon has a tail like a shark, with a long pointed top, and prominent bony plates called scutes along its back and down its sides. This massive fish, which can reach up to 20 feet long, has seen many migrations of salmon. While salmon live short lives of only a few years, sturgeon may pass 100 years. Another diving bird plunges into the river in pursuit of a salmon smolt. Like the cormorant, this bird's feet are set far to the back of its body for more efficient diving. This male common merganser, a duck that specializes in eating fish, has a sharp red bill and matching orange-red feet, a black head, and a white body with black wings. A pair of mergansers floats on the surface, but these are hooded mergansers. The male has a huge white crest of feathers rimmed in black, a rusty-colored belly, and black and white wing and back feathers. His mate is many different shades of brown, with a crest of brown feathers sticking out from the back of her head like she is caught in a strong wind. She has a small striped salmon in her bill. They are much smaller than the common merganser. A tern overhead has captured a tiny fish in its sharp orange beak. The sky behind shows a band of distant, high clouds moving over forest-covered mountains. Nearer to you is a dam, representing the many dams found on the Columbia River and its tributaries. The foreground of the mural indicates that we are following a smaller river now, its bottom covered in rocks and dead logs. A fish with a pointed snout and yellowish fins is near a log. This is a northern pike minnow. Young salmon parr, their sides striped for camouflage, move past, still following the general outgoing stream of salmon. Another step upstream, farther into the river, and the salmon are no longer showing migratory behavior. They are instead keeping close to the cover of rocks and logs in the freshwater river of their birth. They are still targeted by predators, like the spotted trout with white on the leading edges of its fins, a bull trout. A great blue heron with gray wings, rufous neck, and black feathers like a cap on its head stands on stilt-like legs at the edge of the water, a small fish clamped in its very long yellow bill. Behind in the tall rushes, a robin-sized red-winged blackbird perches. Overhead, a bald eagle soars, broad, dark wings outspread, its white head and tail silhouetted against a darkening sky. A screen of brush overtopped by wind-beaten conifers rises on a rocky ridge beyond the wetland. Silhouetted against the sky is an eagle's nest, a saucer of branches at the very top of a tree. Another step upstream, and you are in the presence of 2 otters. These river or land otters are active and efficient predators. One dives over the underwater log, trailing bubbles, its form sleek and slender. A long, muscular tail helps to steer as it paddles with webbed back feet, forelegs pressed against its chest. It is chasing a fleeing rainbow trout. On a boulder above the water, another otter perches with a trout held in its mouth. The otter's long tail trails in the water, and water runs from its fur down the rock. The boulder on which the otter rests is at the base of a pile of even larger boulders, many covered in patches of thick moss. A waterfall trickles down from the darkness of an evergreen forest. Where the waterfall enters the river in a small flurry of white water, a dipper looks for prey. This is a small, dark gray bird, also called a water ouzel, with very large, sharp-clawed feet. It feeds by walking underwater, looking through a special eyelid that works like swimming goggles, allowing the bird to spot insects and small fish to eat. Above the water, it can retract this eyelid, which, when it blinks, makes the eye look like a spot of silver. A cutthroat trout with a characteristic slash of orange under its lower jaw has risen to steal the dipper's meal, an aquatic insect with 2 skinny tails, probably the nymph or juvenile form of a stonefly. In deeper water, the rounded, smaller rocks that form the base of the river teem with tiny salmon fry. Even younger salmon, bearing yolk sacs on their bellies, hide in the rocks. A juvenile caddisfly in its stick-like casing crawls on a boulder. Light gleams from the silvery side of a steelhead, a fish in the same genus as Pacific salmon, that is about to consume one of the fry. A small sculpin, a fish that lurks at the river bottom and catches prey by surprise, sizes up one of the fry for a meal. The mural bends at the corner of the room and continues to the right, framing 2 doors at either side of this short wall. The doors lead into the hatchery's nursery. Close to the door on the left is another common merganser, paddling at the water's surface, with a salmon fry in its narrow orange bill. The upper third of the painting is now occupied by a beaver dam, the gnawed ends of branches sticking up from an interwoven lattice. A trickle of water dribbles into the river. A beaver sits on the riverbank next to the pointed stump of a tree it has felled. Its broad, flat, leathery tail rests on the grass while it holds a branch in its small front paws to nibble. Its thick, glossy fur shines. Beavers are strictly vegetarian and never eat salmon. It is included in this mural because beavers create habitat which can greatly benefit fish. In the water below the beaver dam, the salmon are shown very early in their life cycle. They are just an inch or 2 long and have orange yolk sacs on their bellies. At this stage, they are called alevins, or sac fry. They do not have a mouth or a stomach and feed solely from the yolk their mothers provided them in the egg. They are weak swimmers when they are so young and stay hidden within the gravel and rocks as much as possible. A sleek bull trout with pale yellow spots chases some alevins into a niche in the rocks. More caddisflies crawl on the stones. These aquatic insects are indicators of high-quality water, cold and clean and good for salmon. A kingfisher has just taken a dive, leaving a line of bubbles behind it. This bird is adapted to plunge from a height into the water to pursue small fish. Its long black beak is slightly parted as it prepares to snatch at a tiny alevin. It swims with its wings, steering with its squared tail. The feathers on its upper body are blue-gray, and its belly feathers are white with a broad band of rust, which means this is a female. Her normally upright blue crest of feathers is flattened against her head as she dives. A cutthroat trout, longer than the kingfisher, is also pursuing sac fry at the bottom of the river. So too are a pale, silvery mountain whitefish and a fan-finned, camouflaged sculpin. In front of the mural, a taxidermied bear stands about 5 feet tall, as though it has just stepped out of the painting. It is a black bear, but this is a misleading name because its fur is a warm cinnamon brown color. The scientific name for the black bear is Ursus americanus, so a better common name would be the American bear, especially since it is only found in North America. It stands on its hind legs, raising one front paw, the long, stiff fur on its paws partially obscuring the curved claws. White fur on the chest forms a Y-shaped mark. The bear's nose is long, giving its face a profile like that of a dachshund. Its long, rounded ears are prominent, raised and turned forward in an alert position. It stands on a boulder with rocks and driftwood scattered around its feet. At the end of the short wall and its two doors, the mural turns the corner to the right to complete the final long wall. Now we have a more open view of the river with its rounded cobblestone bed. A bare log lies on the bank, its tip in the water. Deciduous trees are growing close to the shore, with grass beneath them. The leaves on the trees are turning yellow, and many have fallen, and the grass is tall and yellow, giving this part of the mural an autumnal feel. Behind is a steeper rise covered in brush and topped with scattered pines, and beyond that are dry, golden, eroded hills. The sky is nearly cloudless and pale blue. In the river, you are now viewing the beginning of the life cycle of salmon. Tiny alevins are just hatching from their eggs, attracting bull and rainbow trout eager to eat them. The orange eggs of salmon are scattered amongst the cobbles, also nutritious targets for steelhead and whitefish. While it is the beginning of life for this generation, it is the end of the life cycle for their parents. In the background of the river, you can see bright red adult salmon, the males with deeply hooked jaws, aiming to stick close to the females. One female is on her side, using her tail to dig into the gravel to cover and protect her eggs while they develop. Salmon close to death have white patches of fungus where they have been injured. The carcasses of dead, rotting salmon lie on the bottom. A black-feathered raven explores the edge of the river, hoping to find a carcass to feed upon. Adult salmon put all of their energy into returning to spawn and reserve nothing for themselves. After spawning, they die. But the carcasses provide food for aquatic insects, which will later be food for the hungry young salmon, another gift given by the parents to ensure the survival of their offspring. From death comes life. As the adult salmon return, they still face predators. A drift boat rowed by a man is shown on this river, with a mustached angler in the bow, attempting to reel in a lively salmon leaping at the surface, displaying the lure hooked on its lip. The spawning salmon in this section of the mural are coho, with mottled red bodies and white gums. Salmon change colors during spawning season. A long-bodied steelhead is shown in its spawning colors, a splash of vivid pink along the flank and on the cheek. Steelhead are in the same genus as the 5 species of Pacific salmon, but their life cycle can be different, with some migrating out to sea and returning to fresh water to spawn, and others staying in fresh water their whole lives, taking the name rainbow trout. A few can even survive to spawn more than once. Another step to the right, and there is a pair of Chinook salmon spawning in the foreground. Both have skin that is turned red, although their backs are greenish and covered in black spots. This pair is in the act of spawning. The female is releasing her orange eggs, while the male releases a milky cloud of white milt. Fertilization happens swiftly in the water. These salmon have fulfilled their purpose, starting the next generation. A single female Chinook can produce up to 5,000 eggs, but only some of these are likely to survive long enough to migrate to the ocean, and even fewer will make the return trip back to the stream where they were born. Behind this pair is a flurry of other adult salmon, females accompanied by males, who attack other males to drive them away, doing their best to defend their right to fertilize a female's eggs. While the salmon are focused on one another, an angler fishes with a rod and reel from a wooden platform built out over the water. This tribal man has his black hair bound in a long ponytail and wears blue jeans and a khaki t-shirt. A long-handled net hangs over the edge of the platform. A white bucket is behind him. Members of the Pisquosa tribe have fished at the hatchery's location for thousands of years and still do today. Behind this fisherman, the low hills are visible through scattered ponderosa pine trees, including Wedge Mountain, named for its triangular shape. The pines are tall, red-barked, and sparsely branched. Small, puffy clouds are in the sky. The hills rise to higher, sharper mountains in the distance, two of the peaks forming the Sleeping Lady, resembling a woman lying on her back in profile, with snow still visible in the high-elevation gullies. The water of the river deepens to represent a lake, and a different kind of salmon is here, sockeye with deep red torsos, green heads, and white on the lower jaws. Sockeye spawn around the edges of lakes. Where the sockeye salmon appear on the mural, the wall hooks inward toward you. The bend in the wall shields a staff door behind it and also contains a display case. The case is inset into the wall and contains a pair of Chinook salmon, mounted so they appear to be floating. These are three-dimensional models with a highly realistic appearance. Pebbles are set in the foreground of the case and cobbles behind, blending into a painted background of a river bottom, also by Roger Witter. The exoskeletons of some aquatic insects are attached to a few of the rocks. Light from the top of the case shines down like sun through water. The pair of salmon are in early spawning colors, not a vivid red yet, but a flush of rose along the flanks. Both are wild salmon, recognized by the presence of a small rounded fin on the back near the tail. This adipose fin is clipped off hatchery salmon when they are young, making them readily identifiable as hatchery fish. The model on the left has a strongly hooked jaw, indicating it is male. While this male is larger than the female in the case, males may also be much smaller than females, so size is not a good indicator of gender, but the jaw shape is. Above this case is another model fish. This one is also highly realistic and represents a bull trout. It is mounted on a sand-covered base with rounded stones and a piece of bare wood. To the right of the case, the mural ends, and the back of the bald eagle case is present. You have come full circle, following the life cycle of Pacific salmon from the ocean to the waters of their birth, viewing the stages of life, from the beginning as eggs to alvin, fry, par, smolt, and adult. You have encountered a wide variety of animals that depend on salmon for food, from killer whales to ravens to humans. You've explored the changing ecosystem that supports salmon, ocean, estuary, river, and lake. Salmon carry ocean nutrients hundreds, even thousands of miles upstream, connecting sea and land in a unique way. When the salmon of Leavenworth National Fish Hatchery are released as smolt to make their own way to the ocean and find their own way back, they join wild fish as part of the great ecosystem of which we are all a part. Mural painted by Roger Witter. Thanks and appreciation for the assistance of Lynette Kelsey. Traditional folk music played on hammered dulcimer by Julia Penix. Written, filmed, and narrated by Julia Penix, Visitor Services Manager for Leavenworth Fisheries Complex. This film was produced in October of 2020 at Leavenworth National Fish Hatchery in Washington State.